You'd whiled away the morning, doing whatever struck your fancy, and now you were recharging with lunch. With nothing on the horizon, you were free to spend as much or as little time on your plate as you wanted. It was while you were thinking on all the possibilities for your afternoon that your moms approached you. Hi, Faye. You okay? Mouthful, you nodded in reply. To your surprise, they both sat with you at the table. Based on the time, you had wondered if they were joining you for a meal, but neither of them brought anything. Great, we wanted to have a little chat with you. The qualifier little did nothing to downplay the situation. Your chewing slowed as your eyes widened, looking from one parent to another. Anything that required both of them to talk to you must be something big. You perked up, your mind full of exciting possibilities. A vacation, maybe, or a pet? A revelation that they were actually undercover agent. You leaned in, eager to learn more. There's a soiree at the Cypress tomorrow night. Irma and I are going. The Cypress was the country club your moms were part of and where Elizabeth played golf. It seemed like every other month they had some event or another, all with fancy names like Sorry. You nodded eagerly, anxious for Mom to get to the good stuff. Mom chuckled at your poorly concealed reaction. Leaning in, Ma took your hand and squeezed it. We've decided to make the night a bit special. Elizabeth's going to be allowed to stay home fully alone for the first time. You'll still be coming to the party with us. It's Elizabeth's night to party with no family around. Not yours, sorry. You've got to wait a couple more years. What's the sorry going to be like? The usual? Well, mostly. We wanted to make it a special night for you too, so we've got something a little extra planned. That was unexpected. Interested, you listened. Your parents shared a look across the table. You cleared your throat, reminding them that you were waiting. They couldn't keep dropping such hints, and then turned coy when the conversation was about to get good.
Well,
since it's a pretty fancy party, that's still cheaper that's still chaperoned, and attendees are allowed to bring a guest. We thought it might be a nice opportunity for you to invite someone yourself as a date, if you want. Your eyes widened as the words sunk you. Your mom's continued, and it was a struggle to keep up. Even though we'll be at the party too, you don't need to worry about us getting in your way. You'll be free to eat, dance, and enjoy the music as you see fit. But no leaving the property. Ma nodded at Mom's interjection. Yes,
isn't that great?
as long as you don't leave the party, and if you'd rather bring just a friend, that's okay too. That's amazing. You must have lit up because your parents shared an amused look again.
Don't worry
The
about it.
story isn't until tomorrow, so you've got time. Just let us know your plans before we're heading out. And that's all. We'll leave you to your lunch now. Your moms rose from their chairs in unison, disappearing to another part of the house. You barely noticed their departure. All you could think of was what had just happened. The remnants of your lunch started up at you from your plate. You felt that you should finish eating. The conversation had taken your mind off the meal, but you opted to try to eat a little more. You picked at the table plate for a little while longer. Even though you'd relocated to your bedroom, your head was stuck on the conversation that had unfolded at the dining table downstairs. You knew that you wanted it to be a date. The prospect of having your first date made it impossible to sit still. You couldn't help but jiggle your foot as you laid on the bed, contemplating the possibility that night being a date would mean actually asking someone out. The little you knew of that came from what you'd seen on TV and movies, and what you'd heard about from kids at school. Your moms hadn't even entertained the idea of you dating until now. You went over possible words and phrases in your head, setting up scenarios and smooth segues before tearing them down and trying something else. It was too bad you didn't have anyone specific in mind for your imaginary romance. Sighing, you shifted position on the bed, resting your arms on the window sill. A flock of birds caught your eye and led your gaze as they crossed the sky. You watched the birds grow smaller and less distinct until they disappeared from the sight. Like the snap of hypnotist's fingers, you were released from the trance and left with a goal of your own. You were going to take a walk. You ambled through the familiar streets of your neighborhood, picking your path at whim. The time out was as quiet as ever, with tourists choosing to congregate in the shopping area near the beach rather than venture into the sleepy residential zones. It served to clear your head and give you something to do until the evening, but nothing of note occurred. You crossed the threshold of your house as alone as when you first set out. You'd considered the available options, limited as they were, and hadn't felt right about any of them attending tomorrow's event with you. At the sound of the door opening, your mom popped her head into the hall. Hi, Faye. How's it going? I was thinking about what you and Ma said about the sorority tomorrow. There isn't really anybody I want to take. Your mom seemed unfazed by your decision, nodding as you came to join her in the living room. You dropped onto the sofa, comforted by the cushions that pressed into you. Oh, that's fine. There's gonna be plenty to do at the party anyway, so it'll be a good time for just the three of us. No need to push yourself into going with anyone if you don't want to. Yeah, we'll have a great time. That's the spirit. And hey, I'm proud of you for not forcing yourself into something you're not up for. She leaned in and ruffled your hair. Thanks. You smiled at her, feeling content with the world. and the rest of the afternoon passed by just like that. Back in your room, you idly thought about the upcoming story. You were pleased that you didn't have the pressure of taking someone else as a guest, leaving you free to relax and enjoy the evening with your moms. There would be much more chances to take someone to one of those shindigs, whether as a guest or even a date. The country club threw parties often enough. For now, you were happy to be left to your own devices. You were definitely looking forward to the big night. Having someone come as a friend would be the best. You felt most comfortable with that. It made the party a lot more fun than going alone, and you didn't want to go along with the suggestion of that being your first date. But taking a friend required a further decision who to invite. Lee wasn't an option. She couldn't come by just and whenever. Your aunt and uncle had a rule that they need more than 1 day's notice if she was going to visit you. It was too bad, since this sounded like the sort of event she'd love, though not so much that she wouldn't tease you for passing up the opportunity to have an actual date. Maybe Derek could make it. Things were never dull when he was around, and while he didn't live in the area either, he was close enough to get it a little left over at short notice. You decided to invite Derek. You were relieved to find the phone sitting in its cradle in the living room. Picking up the address book your mom's kept close to the phone, you flicked through until you found Derek's number under Suarez. You tapped the numbers into the phone and waited for someone to pick up. Hello, Suarez residence. Good afternoon, Mrs. Suarez. This is Faye Madison. Can I talk to Derek? Oh, I'm sorry. He's out with his brothers right now. I can get him to call you back. Thank you. It would be really great if you could do today. I'll see what I can do. You traded goodbyes, hung up, and found a place to relax in the living room. That was as far as you got in decision making. You let yourself sink down into the corner of the couch and remain stuck against the plush cushions. Your plan A was on hold. More than that, it was hung up on. But you'd committed to waiting to hear from Derek, so waiting is what you had to do. The remote had been carelessly left on the green stool, almost certainly by your big sister. You lurched over the armrest to reach the TV device. You stretched out your finger and succeeded in pressing down the on button. When flopping back down into your seat, you caught a glimpse of what had appeared on the screen. The show playing was a How It's Made mini documentary type of show. The subject of that episode was prepackaged crackers. You didn't have the motivation to actually pick up the remote to change the channel, you simply let it play. After discovering how ice is added to the flour when mixing the wet and dry ingredients, and a jingly ring echoed across the room. Someone was calling. Launching forward, you snatched up the ringer excitedly. Who is it? The initial answer you got was a series of light-hearted chuckles. It's Derek. Hi, Faye. I'm really sorry I missed you calling today. Before, I was watching the little bros at the park. Mom came to find me. She did? Yeah, so I could call you back. Oh. Oh, Mrs. Suarez did you a big favor. Could she tell it was important? But oh, thanks for calling. Was there something you wanted to talk about? I'm going to the summer soiree at the Cypress tomorrow. My moms are going too. Cool. You've got to tell me what happens when you get back. Will you come with me? The pitch of his voice shot up. Really? No way. I could go too. I want to come. That's great.
It's all
This
good.
is gonna be so fun. A muffled feedback masked Derek's voice as he talked on. He was moving around. You could easily picture him bounding about his apartment, phone still in hand.
Oh man.
Oh man, what do you think they're gonna have at the soiree? Dancing, music, sparkly drinks, maybe? Probably. The Cypress usually has pretty fancy parties. So cool. The anticipation between the two of you continued to rise, just imagining what tomorrow night might bring. But the party you were already starting was interrupting when Mom ambled back into the living room. She almost gave you a shout to greet you, but caught herself when she noticed you were on the phone. Mimicking your current position, Mom stuck out her thumb and pinky fingers and pressed that hand against her ear. At the same time, her lips stretched forward to slowly mouth the word who. Can you hang on for a second? I gotta answer my mom, who spoke into the phone.
No worries.
No worries. Say I said hello. Leaving things with him there, you lowered the phone to the counter. So, what's happening? I'm talking to Derek. He says hello. Derek Suarez? Her eyebrows arched in curiosity, but she still wore a grin. And did he happen to call out of the blue, or was it you who gave him a ring? Maybe to ask a certain question? Yeah, he's the lucky guy I asked to the soiree. Okay,
So,
is it a date? Her voice was light, teasing, and it was painful. You could only hope Derek hadn't heard that. We're just gonna hang out at the party together.
sounds good.
Makes sense to me. It'll be a hoot to have him along for a ride. Would you mind if I borrow the phone? I'll give Derek's parents a call and get everything squared away. Alright, I'll tell him. You nestled the phone against her shoulder and cheek to speak directly into it. Derek, my mom wants to talk to your mom about the soiree tomorrow.
Awesome.
Awesome, we'll trade off. Bye, Faye. Bye.
See you later.
Take care, Derek, and see you soon. There were some happy giggles that snuck through before all sound on the other side cut off, marking the end of the conversation. You held the receiver out and Mom strode over to pluck it out of your hand. Thank you very much, kiddo. Your part of the prep work was finished, and the rest of the afternoon passed by just like that. Back in your room, your mind was abuzz with visions of tomorrow night. The soiree was an exciting prospect now that you'd get to experience it with Derek. You just hoped that he'd have a good time when all was said and done. The evening of the soiree had arrived, the daylight hours having slipped away in a blur. Up in your bedroom, you were getting ready for the big event. That was your intention, at least, but you hadn't settled on an outfit. Stationed in front of your wardrobe, you scanned over the clothing you had at your disposal. Though Ma had mentioned this event was a bit dressier than a normal get-together, you didn't necessarily have to comply. You looked for something formal. You attempted to decide between the nicer pieces in your wardrobe, the ones that rarely had a chance to come out. You decided to dress formally because you honestly liked dressing up. There was something magical about the sheen of an elegant fabric and the cut of formal wear, something that transformed everyone into a more sophisticated version of their normal self. To start, you decided to wear a dress. The one you picked was light and had sheen. The silky material seemed to glide through your fingers as you took it from the wardrobe. It was a perfect fit for a summer evening party. You began to get dressed, your fingers working stiff zips and awkward fastenings. It felt different against your skin, reminding you with every movement that you were dressed up. Whatever happened tonight, you were pleased that you'd gotten the opportunity to wear this. Now dressed, you gave yourself a final glance over before heading downstairs, ready to head out. You found your moms already waiting in the living room. They were putting the final touches on their outfits. Ma strapping her heel into a stiletto shoe and Mom trying to fasten a bracelet single-handed. They looked up as you entered.
Oh.
Aw, Faye, you look so nice, don't you think, Pam?
Thanks.
Thanks for dressing up, Faye. I hope the party will be prepared for your arrival. You look sharp. Mom was still struggling with the bracelet. You lent a hand, literally, by taking one side and holding it as she secured the clasp. Thanks, kiddo. Elizabeth flittered down the stairs, her eyes narrowed.
What?
You're still here? Yes, but not for very much longer, hopefully. Wait, I know you're excited, but we haven't even said goodbye, and I want to go over how things are going to play out. Elizabeth sighed as Mom began listing the rules, ticking them off on her fingers. No ordering takeout or other deliveries. You can't have anyone else come over. Uh-huh. She nodded, resigned to her fate, listening to a set of rules she could predict without so much as a glance at the crystal ball. If anything happens, you can call us or go across the street to the Hodens. Keep the noise down. The house might be empty, but there are people all around in the neighborhood. Usual home rules still apply. Don't do anything you wouldn't do if we were here.
All right.
and we'll be back no later than 11:30 p.m. But we'll call if there are any issues, so don't tie up the phone line all night. Right, all done? Can you go now? Ma strolled over and swept Elizabeth up in a hug. Her sister let out a small noise, her eyes widening, and suddenly looked much less like the smug teenager she acted like. You're such a big girl now. I still can't believe. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. This wasn't the quick departure that she'd been hoping for. Any chance of it ending soon vanished as Mom joined in the hug. Neither can I. It feels like it was only yesterday that Elizabeth groaned, trying to cut the reminiscing off without success. You were glad you weren't the one getting the treatment. As the baby of the family, you knew that routine far too well.
Jeez.
Can you all just go? Jeez. Your family disentangled from the hug in time to catch the doorbell ringing. That must be our guest. She hurried over to the door. As Ma predicted, Derek had arrived right on time, and he was ushered inside.
Nice.
You look very nice, Derek.
Same.
Thanks, Mrs. Madison. So do you. Derek pulled at the ends of his little polka dot bow in satisfaction. His gaze, though not so subtly, sought you out. And that's going to you too, Faye. Classy. His words took you by surprise. Derek usually avoided making comments on your appearance, but you were happy to accept the compliment. You inspected his outfit in turn. I love your bow tie, you praised. Thanks. Adults always compliment me on it. Now that Mom had finished reiterating the rules to Elizabeth, who then scurried off to the sanctuary of her room, she came over to greet Derek. Hi Derek, nice to have you along for the ride. Thank you for taking me. It's no problem. It's no trouble. You're always welcome. It should be a fun night. Ma appeared, clutching a purse and wearing a huge smile. Agreed, but we should get going. Oh, and before I forget, thank you so much for getting here on the dot, Derek. That's appreciated. You're welcome, Mrs. Madison. That entrance really was perfect. It must have been hard to time things with the long trip here. Yeah, I wasn't gonna be late for this. Carefree laughter and conversation flowed from Derek.
Oh man.
Man, I told my mom it was 30 minutes before it actually was. I was definitely going to be here when it was time to go. Clever, you've got everything figured out. He hooked a couple fingers into his belt loops, grinning victoriously. I tried to. Mom got me here on time, so like 30 minutes before now.
Well.
I didn't want to interrupt you or your mom's, 'cause you were probably getting ready then. I just hung out at the park. With a wink, Derek tried to smooth over the awkwardness of the confession. Jeremy never popped out of the bushes to insult me, so it was all good. It made you feel special that he cared so much. That means a lot to me. He kicked up a leg bashfully, giggling the whole time.
Thanks.
Thanks. I wanted to make a good impression. And even if I did have to be bored for a while, at least it was here in your neighborhood. You never know. That could have been traffic, or what if George fell off a gate and broke his collarbone again? You invited me to a soiree. My life would be over if just one of those things came up and, oh well, guess we're not going after all, happened. Derek was drowning in the conversation of his own making. He chose to put a stop to that, building a dam between him and it. Sorry, I don't want to be all complaining when we're going to a party. And besides, coming early isn't gonna matter if we're late, 'cause we kept talking about it being early. Let's catch up with your moms. Right, we better hurry. You pulled up at the country club. The sun had sunk deep into the horizon. The last of its light sleepily warming the oncoming night. Your moms led the way to the space around the back where the event was being held. The place had been transformed through decoration, with smart tablecloths and elegant ribbons contributing to a festive atmosphere. Musicians dressed in matching black and white were setting up their instruments and flicking through pages of sheet music, and as promised, there was a table covered in plates of carefully prepared food. Destination reached. Your parents rounded on you and Derek. Things haven't kicked off yet, but don't let this stop you. Don't let that stop you from enjoying yourselves. Have fun. We'll be around if you need us.
See you later.
See you. Bye. Derek enthusiastically waved your moms off, stretching his arms as high as he'd go. Bye, Mrs. and Mrs. Madison. Once they'd retreated a distance away, you found him watching you. His eyes sparkled in a dainty, dangling lights all around as your outing together officially began. Is there anybody you wanna socialize with? That's what parties are for, sometimes. Or we could get refreshments. We can go look at the snacks now. It's okay to eat them, even if the music hasn't started yet.
Let's go.
Alright, let's see what they've got. The two of you wandered over to the refreshment table. With it being early in the night, it had barely been touched, and the plates were nearly as pristine as when they'd left the kitchens. The offerings were all tiny and bite-sized, ready to be picked up and sampled. It was immediately apparent that there was plenty to choose from. Just from the level of care with which it was presented, it was clear that this was fancy stuff. Derek pursued the options with scrutinizing eye from one end to the other. His gaze swept across the scene. He took a few sniffs for good measure. They put these together themselves, or they hired a catering company to come here and make them. But it's really fresh. That's great. You nodded happily, agreeing with Derek's assessment. It was quality food. You picked one of the nearby morsels up and presented it in front of Derek. It looked like a tiny slice of bread. There was a pile of minced veggies and maybe some olives on the top.
Alright.
I'll try that one. Without much thought and without taking much time, Derek scooped up only a couple appetizers onto his plate. The rest were left for other guests. You picked out only certain options. As much as you liked the food on offer, you knew your own limits and preferences. So, do you like it? His face turned away hesitantly. Honesty was conflicting with properness, but he tried to walk that line.
Honestly.
Not that much, but they really tried. A lot of parties use pretty cheap stuff. Yeah, I like that you can only get this stuff here. The company was even better than the food. After going through a round of sampling, you moved on to something else. Derek? Could we find a place to sit?
Obviously.
Oh, duh, yeah. You've gotta have a place to sit. Let me just... He checked out the area, swiveling his head around. When Derek couldn't get a good enough view, he hopped up into the air. That one looks open over here, there. I think so too. You walked to sit at the edge of the party area, where it was quieter with fewer people clutched together. Derek hustled to reach the table first. Don't worry, I'll get that for you. He pulled out a chair and waited. You're a real gentleman. You took a seat on the woven patio chair. It was still a little warm from what was left of the sunlight. Derek gladly pushed it back into place with you in it. Then Derek swung around the table and got into his own chair, the one right across from you. Where did you learn all your manners? I don't know. My family, teachers, TV shows. I just try to be polite, and usually I am. Huh, that's nice. Thanks. Derek leaned all the way back, giving a grin. Now that you had a spot of your own, you stayed chatting with Derek at the table. The conversation continued until you felt refreshed and ready to go again. Alright? Is there anything you'd wanna do? Letting the next move be up to him, Derek restlessly looked around the party. He squinted his eyes and really considered the possibilities. Then he gave an unassertive answer. Well, if it wouldn't be a big deal, would it be alright if you showed me around? I've never seen any of this place, so we could go on a walk. Derek's pointer fingers tapped him in rhythm across the edge of the table, like he was spelling out his answer in text on the typewriter. You nodded in reassurance. Thanks. Derek enthusiastically bounced from his seat. You got to your feet too. You led him down a familiar stone walking path you knew would get far. Your lovely stroll around the country club grounds began in earnest. The bustling sounds of the party soon faded away. replaced by whispers of cricket songs and the serenade summer breeze. Along the way, you gestured outward to point out what buildings were what, from simple storage sheds to special club rooms for VIP members. And you were able to tell Derek all about the golf holes in the distance that you passed by, including how good or bad your big sister was at completing them. You had a chance to tell the funny story when one time she got a penalty for a strike that landed in a water hazard. She had jumped She had jumped right in the little pond to retrieve the ball and tried to pretend it never happened while dripping wet. Derek was as amused as he was amazed. He engaged with you by making silly guesses about you would tell him about next. Derek jokingly suggested that a normal garage was a research facility studying how to add extra green to the grass. You were so absorbed in your companion for the outing and having the space to yourselves that you didn't realize the growing humdrum around you until it was right around the corner. Derek paused. He noticed it too. Oh. His eyebrows quirked as he tried to reason out the disturbance.
Huh?
Is that people? Do we make a loop and I just missed that? No, we're on the opposite end. It's about as far away from the event area as we could be. Curiously, Derek took big strides while mentally puzzling over what you'd say. Together, you passed by a large wall to reveal another seating area. It too was filled with formally dressed people.
Whoa!
What, a second party? None of the faces scattered about were regular members. Each one was as unrecognizable as any stranger off the street. You had your points of focus, and Derek's own, two totally separate ones. He spoke aloud to share what he'd noticed. The tables have cloth here. And I think the chairs didn't look like that back where we were. Actually, this kind of feels like we got stuck in some alternate reality version of our soiree, where everything is still really fancy, but also still different in a weird ways. You're right, that has to be the answer. You joked. Hey, you're the one who's supposed to know the real answer. Okay. Actually, this is their outdoor dining seating for other types of events, ones that aren't the normal soirees. I never have a reason to go here when I visit with my moms. I kind of thought it'd be empty with a soiree happening. Derek's gaze wandered across the area, taking another shred look. Yeah. Why be in this place when there's food and pretty lights over in the patio? And there's way more teens than at our party. Tons of them look like they're our age. This is really mysterious. The long list of questions didn't bother Derek. Quite the opposite. Playing detective was something he was having fun with. It's time to get to the bottom of this. I'm gonna ask somebody what's up. good idea. Yeah, we can get answers. The two of you boldly headed into the thick of the family reunion, business meeting, wedding, secret society meeting, or whatever it was. Soon you would know. The subject Derek zeroed in on was the tall kid, maybe a little older than you and him, who stood on the edges of the crowd by themselves. Most everyone else was part of the group. Or in one-on-one conversation, but not that person.